But first, there's been more explosions overnight in Lebanon. This time, walkie-talkies used by Hezbollah have been the source of the blast. At least 20 have been killed, some 450 wounded in the second wave. Joining me now to discuss this and more, Director at Strategic Analysis Australia, Michael Shoebridge. Michael, thank you for your time. What do we know about the latest attacks? And also, I understand there's new information about the pager bombings yesterday. What can you tell us?
Yes, well, Peter, it looks like these radio attacks, walkie-talkie attacks, are a follow-on from yesterday's exploding pagers because Hezbollah was using these walkie-talkies as a fallback communications device, probably also because it was a use-it-or-lose-it situation. No doubt Hezbollah is paranoid about devices they thought would make them safe, like pagers and walkie-talkies, and now have only made them extraordinarily vulnerable. And on the pagers, it looks like this wasn't some sneaking into a warehouse to tamper with pagers. It looks more elaborate and deeper, like Israeli agencies might have set up a front company, and Hezbollah actually ended up buying these pagers and probably these walkie-talkies from the Israelis rather than another company. So Hezbollah were the customers of Israeli intelligence.
And I'll say this again because you could have been forgiven yesterday to have some sympathy for those attacked. I mean, absolutely for the civilians injured as things unfolded. But if you listen to some of the media reports out there yesterday, these were just innocent Lebanese civilians. They are Hezbollah terrorists, marked out by the fact that they had these Hezbollah pagers with them. The concern now is how Hezbollah will react, and please cover off Iran too. Where might this go, do you think?
Well, there are two ways. So with these attacks, they've followed on that killing of the Hamas leader right in the heart of Tehran. And now these are lethal attacks focused right on the leadership of the Hezbollah terrorist organisation. And at the same time, Iran's attacks on Israel and Hezbollah's rocket attacks have been successfully defended. So Israel is either setting the conditions, if there's a wider war, to be in a bigger situation of advantage because it's disrupted the leadership of its enemies, or it's re-establishing its deterrent power, saying to Hezbollah and Iran, we can reach in and strike your leadership at will, and we can defend against the thing you thought gave you a huge advantage, your rockets and missiles.
Michael, let's go to New York, to the United Nations, and this shameful abstention by Australia on this Palestinian motion. Here was Penny Wong trying to justify our position.
We would have preferred to have been in a position where we could support a resolution that reflected the International Court of Justice's advisory opinion, and we worked very hard in New York with other countries to try and get changes to the resolution that would enable us to support it. Unfortunately, this was not the case.
I mean, this was drafted by the Palestinian Authority. It's extraordinary. We squibbed it. And where was the condemnation in this, Michael, about Hamas? Where was the condemnation about October 7?
Yes, this resolution was calling on Israel to unilaterally withdraw from Gaza and the West Bank. It wasn't calling for anything for Hamas to do. It was all on the Israelis. I thought our government's policy was a negotiated peace and release of the hostages abducted by Hamas. But it seems like the government's lost sight of the fact that this resolution is pretty much brought to us by the Hamas terrorist organisation. And you cannot end this war simply by pretending that it's entirely up to Israel.
What about the news this morning that rather than sending out decommissioned but much-needed military equipment to Ukraine, instead we're selling it for recreational use on some sort of eBay weapons website? I mean, are you kidding me?
Yes. If the Defence Department that Richard Marles is the Minister of was an aeroplane, it would be one where the pilot was dead and the thing was flying on autopilot. because this policy of selling military equipment and vehicles that our military don't need anymore on online auctions and getting a buck for them made absolute sense before the Ukraine war. Now we know the Ukrainians are desperately short of exactly these kind of vehicles and equipment, and the Russians are using stuff that is much, much older very successfully. So obviously we need to switch off the autopilot and have Richard Marles say the Ukrainians get first right of refusal for anything our defence bureaucrats are thinking of flogging off.
Well, turn off the autopilot.
At least they haven't cut them up and buried them.
I mean, I worked for a defence minister in the Howard era. I mean, this guy's unbelievable. We had that video out yesterday, put out by the Chinese, showing them flexing their muscle in the South China Sea, harassing one of our aircraft. We then have North Korea firing multiple ballistic missiles in the past couple of days. And he's wringing his hands, very, very little to say on any of this stuff. All he said about the Chinese incident actually was that they couldn't verify the authenticity of the vision. I mean, this is a joke.
Yes, well, I think we've got to be kinder. I think he's following Penny Wong's orders, and they are, when you've got obvious uncomfortable truths about Beijing and the Chinese military, you need to be like the three wise monkeys. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, because the main thing that this government wants to do is sell lobsters to Beijing rather than confront the problem of an aggressive China.
And for former Labor politicians to get on the Chinese gravy train as well, Michael Shoebridge, don't forget that. Thank you for your time.